Yeah, Peyton Manning's in this draft.
Short drop, now play. Out of the pocket, sacked. He's sacked. He's sacked by Wadsworth. For 18 years, we've zeroed in on the very first pick. Who'll it be in our 19th year? We know it's a quarterback. Back to pass goes deep. Here's the rush. He throws to the end zone. Touchdown! Touchdown! That is the most unbelievable touchdown play in a college football game. Manning back to throw. Looking pass down and out is touchdown. They are it. He scored. Peyton Manning gives him 6. The NFL is full of stars, but there's always room for more in the galaxy. It's blast-off time for the class of 1998. New York City, the Big Apple. Madison Square Garden, the site of so many major big-time sporting events, and inside at the theater. They're ready. And some of the best players, we'll hear from them very early. Peyton Manning. Will he go first to the Colts? Or will it be Ryan Leaf that goes first to the Colts and second to the Chargers? Charles Woodson, the Heisman Trophy winner. We'll hear from him very early. And the running back that everybody covets, Penn State's Curtis Enos. It's the 63rd annual selection meeting of the National Football League. I look forward every year to just say that. Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Berman, and welcome inside here to the theater, along with my usual compatriots, Mel Kiper and Joe Theismann. We have Tom Jackson up on the demo set. We're everywhere. Chris Fowler and our college gang up in Connecticut. We are all over the country. And to steal from Chuck Berry's sweet little 16, we're really rocking in Boston, in Miami, FLA. We're up the coast in Jacksonville, and Cincinnati, IA. All right, I'll stop now. It's just too good to pass up. The first pick in Indianapolis, a later pick in Green Bay. We're live in the heart of Texas and out on the desert in Arizona. And with the most intriguing player early on in West Virginia with Marshall's wide receiver Randy Moss. We'll video teleconference into the Jets and Giants and Baltimore. And Carolina and Tampa Bay and New Orleans and Kansas City and St. Louis in the Windy City in Minnesota, the champion Broncos in San Francisco. Frankly, we're going to run up a hell of a phone bill. Radio, wall-to-wall, ESPN Radio, noon to 6, ESPN.com, and that's not it. And welcome back to New York. We are eagerly anticipating the start of what may go down in history when we look back 10 years from now as the high watermark draft of the entire decade of the 90s. The Indianapolis Colts have been, which quarterback do they go with? Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf. Our Mark Malone is out in Indianapolis. Let's get the last word before it's official. Mark?
Well, the last word is that Bill Polian and Jim Mora, this organization, Boomer, they're not making it public in terms of who they've decided on. They spent many hours last night, very late, trying to separate these two quarterbacks. Bill Polian had told me that earlier in the day, they had them about 1/10 of a point apart. They were very, very close. They spent most of the night separating those two. And I had probably one of the most interesting philosophical discussions about quarterbacks with Polian that I've had in a long time. For about an hour last night, we discussed the pros and cons of these two guys. First of all, Polian says that he's not enamored necessarily with big, strong guys, although both of these quarterbacks are 6'5". Peyton Manning, it seems to me, is the guy that has the most experience, and that ultimately is going to be, I think, the difference in this draft. He played the extra year, certainly as he came back, 6'5", 230. He's got more game time experience. He prepares well. Again, the nickname, the caveman, that he's been tagged with by his teammates because he watches so much film. And when you look at all the intangibles that Bill Polian really researches and looks at in a quarterback, especially with the track record this franchise has had over the last decade or two in terms of quarterbacks, they need to make the right choice. He's not saying, Boomer, but I can tell you this. In my gut, if I was playing poker with him, I think it's going to be Peyton Manning.
I think if we had to go out on a limb, that would be our guess. But you know what? They earned this 4 months of keeping everybody in suspense. Let them keep it for another 15 minutes. Let's go quickly to Mel Kiper and obviously Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf, who guys are going to talk about at length and hopefully at length for the next 12, 14 years. Let's look at overall value. How would you rank the board specifically on the best players available?
I think when you look at it, Chris, Andre Wadsworth could be the next Bruce Smith. Arizona trades down, still gets the best player on my board. Charles Woodson, dynamic, pure cornerback. Then the two quarterbacks, the cerebral quarterback in Manning, the gunslinger in Leaf. Keith Brooking, a versatile kid, can play middle linebacker, can play outside linebacker, and of course Curtis Enos, very well-rounded running back, outstanding pass receiver out of the backfield. Then there's a drop-off. After those top four, the grades slip a little bit. Then you pick it up again with Takeo Spikes, an outstanding middle linebacker. A couple players to watch. Kyle Turley, because of his versatility, can play guard or tackle. And Grant Wistrom has definitely moved up into that top 10 because of his very consistent motor.
The most intriguing story of the day will be the wide receiver for Marshall, Randy Moss, who I did not see right there. What happens with him?
Well, the off-the-field concerns certainly are there. Not on the field. Of course, at Marshall, dominated the Mid-American Conference. Those 44 touchdowns really stick out. He was a man among boys when you talk about how he dominated cornerbacks in the MAC. But those off-the-field concerns, and really as a wide receiver, he still has to develop his skills, getting off press coverage, route running.
But for Pro Bowl talent, he may be a man among boys, as you say. Well, we're about ready to tee it off. And on the first tee, Commissioner Paul Tagliabue.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the National Football League's 1998 player draft. We'll start with the Indianapolis Colts having the first selection. The Colts are now on the board.
So while the Colts, quote, think it over, Joe, Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf, both have potential to be stars for a long time. Do you have a preference?
Actually, I don't necessarily have a preference because both bring a lot to the table. These are both very good athletes. They're both very big, young football players. When you take a look at the opportunities that they've had to play, you have to take a look at the experience that Peyton Manning has. He's played a lot longer. As a matter of fact, Ryan Leaf played 2 years in high school, 2 years in college. Peyton Manning played all 4 years in college, so he's played more just in college. Leadership, because Manning has played more, he has that ability, but Ryan Leaf jumped up a lot in his senior year. Maturity, again, because Manning has played so much football, he gets the edge there. Physical skills, Ryan Leaf brings just a ton of natural talent. And the conversation that you have with the personnel people and the coaches regarding these young men is the upside in Ryan Leaf is terrific. What you get from Peyton Manning right now is a wonderful, polished athlete. Both of them bring a lot of assets to this table. I think both will fit very well with the teams that they wind up with.
Well, each owner brought jerseys of both. And by the way, whoever team that they don't go to, let's just say the Colts pick Peyton Manning. I wonder how much that Ryan Leaf Colts jersey would be worth at a charity auction. In 1983, John Elway was drafted first by the Baltimore Colts. Do you remember?
Baltimore selects as the first choice in the draft quarterback John Elway of Stanford.
As I stand here right now playing baseball, like I said, I don't want to be a jerk or anything about it. We've been telling you for 3 months that I'm not going to play in Baltimore, and I know for a fact you've been offered 3 ones and a quarterback, and you turn that down. And right now you have nothing.
Of course, John Elway never took a snap for the Baltimore, then Indianapolis Colts, quarterback for the Denver Broncos, and of course will be receiving his Super Bowl ring before opening day. The Broncos, John Elway, have quarterbacks who have started 6 games or more since 1983. He's the only one. What have the Colts done since then? Jeff George, Jim Harbaugh, Pierre Trudeau, Mike Onion, Pagel, Chris Chandler, Gary Hogeboom, Paul Justin, a smattering of who they've had. 20 years ago, they drafted Burt Jones in the first round, and he worked out. But Elway never became a Colt. Art Schlichter was a first-round pick. They have a chance to undo a lot of negative history in the quarterback. I don't mean that Jim Harbaugh or Jeff George weren't good players, but maybe not to the degree of Peyton Manning, who brings special talent, starting with his release. Almost releases the ball too quick, doesn't he, Mel?
I'll tell you, when you look at Peyton Manning, his size, he's over 6'5". You look at that 230-pound frame, really an extension of your offensive coordinator. Statistics prove them out what I'm talking about in terms of his accuracy. I mean, he is on target, rounded off his game as a passer. And I'll tell you, the arm strength, watch him here. You know, sticking between a defender, get in the end zone. And when you see accuracy, I think that's what I'm talking about here. On a very consistent basis. And as I said before, what I like about Peyton is he can elude the initial defender, and he has that ability to loft the ball, Joe, and that's an instinctive quality that only the great quarterbacks really possess.
You know how big this draft is? It's not very often that we see the owners of the first 2 teams Jimmy Irsay is going to bring the card up for the Colts here in a few seconds. Alex and Dean Spanos are here, the ownership of the Chargers, to bring their card up with the second pick. And as we speak, Jim on cue. Very exciting moment for him and the entire Colts franchise. And the question now becomes, will the RCA Dome, a.k.a. the Big Horseshoe, will that become Peyton's place?
With the first pick in the draft, the Indianapolis Colts select quarterback, University of Tennessee, Peyton Manning.
What a proud moment for Peyton, his family. He saw his brothers, mom and dad, and of course Archie Manning, who excelled with a very poor team for years and years with the New Orleans Saints. The jersey's ready, and here he is, the new quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts, Peyton Manning. And I guess we must do this. Golf fans know this cheer. In Indianapolis, you can now yell, Peyton, you the Manning!
I think it's a great choice, Chris. I mean, I believe that he's going to fit in so perfectly. And really, when I had a chance to talk to the organization over the last 2 weeks, they've sort of pointed themselves towards getting ready for the Peyton Manning arrival. His athletic ability, his quickness. And Mel, you brought up something else. Remember during the college season, everybody talked about the little pitter-patter steps that he used to take. When you watched him in workouts, they were gone. He's very conscious of what needs to be done to correct his skills to make himself play at the next level. He's coachable, he's teachable, he's very smart in his approach to the game of football. You're really getting the perfect student as well as a fine, fine young man.
I know, Joe, but just a note of caution. I think we tend to expect too much from young quarterbacks in the National Football League. They're force-fed, they're scrutinized really as rookies. I think it's unfair. I think he needs to be brought along slowly. Sure, he'll be the starting quarterback on opening day more than likely, but still, you have to go through those growing pains. It's not the SEC any longer. I think too often, Joe, quarterbacks that first, second year are talked about as busts or booms. I think it's far premature.
I don't think it is in the case of Peyton Manning. See, I get to disagree with you in the first 15 minutes of the show, which is a rarity. But I really think that in the case of Peyton Manning, you're going to see his statistics at the end of the year probably look like a 3 or a 4-year player. I think he'll be able to adjust that quickly. I really feel like this young man can adjust that quickly to the game of football. The Indianapolis Colts are going to need him. They're a football team that's not very far away. Offensively, they're in pretty good shape. Tom Moore takes over as the coordinator. Rusty Tillman takes over as the defensive coordinator for Indianapolis. Rusty will run an aggressive style of defense. They get Jeff Arad back in the middle. They're soaring up that side of the line. Offensively, good tight ends, good running backs. I think there's a lot of people around him to be able to allow him to be successful.
And he should start right away. And I think in the Bill Polian, Jim Mora era of the Indianapolis Colts, the key player for Peyton Manning will not necessarily be who he has up front. It's going to be Marshall Faulk. If a big-time running game can go with a nice, young, maturing quarterback, this will be a treat. Yep. Marshall becomes key to how Peyton Manning does, who is now with our Mike Tirico. Michael.
Okay, Chris, thank you. Peyton, one of your endearing qualities is that you are such a team guy, and you gave your team the credit all the time at Tennessee. Will you at least take this moment to feel proud of your accomplishment?
Well, it's an honor, Mike. There's no question about it. I'm really excited about what's ahead and just proud that the Colts put their faith in me. I'm looking forward to the challenge of getting the program going, and it's a really exciting time right now.
Everyone was playing great poker from the Colts side. Were you at all concerned that you weren't going to be their selection?
I had a pretty good idea, Mike, but I can keep a secret too. There's no question about that. But like I said, really excited. I'm going to Indianapolis today and looking forward to visiting Mr. Polian and Coach Moore. And I'm excited to go to work. I'm ready to get started right now.
Quickly, how long have you been keeping that secret?
Can't tell you that either, Mike.
We'll talk to you later. Okay. Peyton Manning, the Colts' #1 pick. He will wear his dad's old number 18. He couldn't have it at Tennessee, Chris.
All right, Mike, and congratulations, Peyton. He can keep a secret. So can the general manager of the Colts, Bill Polian, who's with our Mark Malone. Let's go out to Indianapolis right now, Mark.
Well, Chris, we said that, or I said at least this morning, I wouldn't want to play poker with Bill Polian. He has kept a secret so well. coming up to this draft. You and I spoke at length last night. You still didn't really indicate to me where you'd go. Tell me, in your heart of hearts, did it take you until late last night to really come down to this decision, Bill?
No, not really. I think sometime around midday yesterday, Jim Moore and I sat down and we said, you know, what's in our hearts? We've done all the research. We've done all the measurements that you can do. And in the end, it comes down to making a very tough pick. These are two very, very fine football players. And we just felt that Peyton, because of his experience and his maturity level in the game of football, not personal maturity, but in the game of football, fit best for us in this particular situation. I'm confident that Ryan Leaf is going to go on and have an outstanding career, and I wouldn't bet against him playing in the AFC Championship game in the not-too-distant future.
Speaking of his maturity and his experience level, does that mean that this kid comes in and starts right away? He's at the top of your depth chart?
Well, we're going to start him out there, and then we'll see where it goes. We're going to throw him in, whether it's game 1 or game 4. I think is immaterial, but he's going to learn on the job, that's for sure.
Well, Bill Polian has certainly put his brand on this particular franchise with a #1 overall pick, Peyton Manning of the Tennessee Volunteers. Now, let's take it back to Boomer in New York.
All right, Mark, thank you. So Peyton becomes now the 9th quarterback to be drafted #1 overall since 1970. Drew Bledsoe, the Patriots, 93. Jeff George, Indy, 1990. A fellow named Troy Aikman, who won 3 Super Bowls for Dallas in 89. Vinny Testaverde, the Bucks in 87. John Elway, 83, Baltimore, but of course never took a snap there. Steve Bartkowski, a very good quarterback, 75, Atlanta. 71, Jim Plunkett by Boston, won 2 Super Bowls with Oakland. And a fellow named Terry Bradshaw, 1970 with Pittsburgh, who won 4 Super Bowls. So it's pretty good pedigree. Peyton fits right in. Why is San Diego on the clock? They moved up from the 3 overall spot to the 2 spot, which was owned by Arizona, and they paid quite a price. They shifted first-round picks. It cost them a second this year. Eric Metcalf, linebacker Patrick Sapp, and Bobby Beathard surrendered the first-round pick in 1999. But they felt they just had to make the move.
The one position we just couldn't afford to wait any longer was the quarterback position. I think it was unique to us, you know, that right now in the position we're at, we needed to address the quarterback position if we had the opportunity to do so. And it was there. As expensive as it was there for us to have that chance. So we took advantage of it.
The amazing thing in this draft is that we were in 3rd position. And I don't know when again you're going to find the 2 teams in front of you where one team doesn't need a quarterback. If we're ever going to be there and, you know, get to the position where we want to be in the league, you can't do it without one of those guys. And if we're right in our evaluation that either one of these guys can take you there, then I think it was a deal we had to make.
One thing that Bobby Beathard has never done in his history, and of course building the Super Bowl champions in Washington and a Super Bowl team in San Diego, before that years around the league, Miami, he has never drafted a quarterback in round 1 or in round 2. He's done pretty well in round 3 to 8. And back when they had drafts up to round 17, he drafted. And there's one of our favorites in the league, Sid Brooks, longtime equipment man, gentleman extraordinaire for the Chargers. And he doesn't know what to do right now. Who do we pick?
He's also
Possibly could we pick?
Gee, maybe it's the guy on the camera right now. I guess it would be, maybe we'll go out on a big tree here. Ryan Leaf, I think, is obviously a natural fit. I felt like each of these guys would be a natural fit for their football teams. The thing about Ryan Leaf is he brings a swagger to the game. There's an upside to Ryan Leaf that nobody's quite sure of because he hasn't played as much football as Ryan Leaf. He's got tremendous feet for a big man. He can back out, look left, turn and throw right, as well as any smaller quarterback I've watched film. And looking at a lot of it, I can tell you, he gets rid of the ball quickly. He moves very well for a big man, throws extremely well on the run. The only question you have is how long is it going to take for him to be able to be comfortable at this level? If you're going to compare him to one football player that's come out in recent years, he definitely would have to be compared to a Drew Bledsoe because he's that type of an athlete.
Well, he moves a lot better than people would think.
Oh, yeah.
Someone at 6'5 and a half, 245, and it led the team to the Rose Bowl. And a bomber in the Air Coryell Dan Fouts mold. He's in a good stadium, isn't he, with a little bit of history? Let's go to the commissioner.
With the second choice in the draft, the the San Diego Chargers select quarterback, Washington State University, Ryan Leaf.
The hugs from the Leaf Brigade, or I guess we should call it a forest. Why not? Because there's lightning bolts here adorning the theater at New York. Ryan Leaf from behind stage to front and center. And like I said, great pedigree with throwing the football at San Diego. He stays on the West Coast.
And he only had 32 members of his family here last night.
I know, I said it's a forest.
It's great. It should be. You're right.
And you know what's best about these kids is I say they're kids, but these young men who we've gotten to know a little bit, and I don't know either of them well, but they're just fun to be around, in addition to fun to watch play football.
They are, and in sitting with them last night, having a chance to visit with them, both of them have made this simple statement. They're ready to get it started now. They're ready to get it going. They want to get on to the next level of their life, and now the moment has come.
Is the ceiling higher in your mind for Ryan Leaf now than it is for Peyton Manning? As Alex Spanos, the owner of the Chargers, he brought 2 jerseys too. He could file that Manning jersey and sell that at a charity auction. Here he is, Ryan Leaf, 16. Is the ceiling higher on him, perhaps?
I really believe, Chris, when you look back at this trade, San Diego moving up from 3 to 2. 5 years from now, it may not look like Bobby Beathard gave up enough. This kid has tremendous potential, great physical ability, throws the ball all over the field. And I think when you look at San Diego, they were fortunate to have this pick. They tried to trade away the 98 first-round pick in the second round last year. So Bobby Beathard fortunate to have that choice to get a Ryan Leaf. Touchdowns 33. Of course, he was the guy that led that team into the Rose Bowl. Really carried that football team on his shoulders throughout the season. You see the ability to throw across the body and still throw strikes down the field. That's why his accuracy is questioned sometimes, because look what he tries to do. Always that gunslinger, doing whatever he can to get the ball in the hands of the receiver. Remember, this kid's 245, 250 pounds. So defensive ends coming off the blind side or attacking the pocket are not going to be able to intimidate Ryan Leaf or take him down very easily, because he can shrug off defenders a la Roman Gabriel, the former Ram. And what you really liked this year was the poise. You see how he's not flustered. Mike Price, I thought, worked with him last summer, quarterback coach, head coach with the Cougars, and Mike Price deserves a lot of credit for transforming Ryan Leaf into this great quarterback that he was this season.
And now he goes, Joe, with assistants like June Jones and Joe Bugle. Who has the better situation, Leaf or Manning, or are they both very good and very nurturing for them?
I think you have to compare their situations, not just to the coaching aspect, but the people around them. For example, from a coaching standpoint, I think it's fairly even. I think both of them will benefit. Bruce Arians in Indianapolis, June Jones in San Diego, excellent quarterback coaches. They're both in systems that will allow them to develop as quarterbacks. Offensive line, I think Leaf has a little bit of an advantage right now. San Diego went out and got Aaron Taylor and John Jackson to really handle a terrible problem they had. Skill positions, I think the advantage goes to Manning a little bit. And the last part would be the defense. I think also Manning gets a little bit of an edge in Indianapolis. Ryan Leaf is going to have to go in and grow up with this football team. Peyton Manning is going to come into a football team that has a lot of pieces in place. So if you're Manning coming in, I think the expectations will be higher because the football team has a little bit more around it.
I'm almost sure that Peyton will start in week 1. I think Ryan Leaf may not start for about a month. He may wait behind Wheelahan, but if you're looking at the schedule, week 5, October 4th, San Diego at Indianapolis. Will it by then be Leaf against Manning? Something to point out very early in the season. 93, we had the identical situation when Bill Parcells played the same sort of bluff. Was it Bledsoe? Was it Meyer? The Patriots took Drew Bledsoe. Rick Meyer never panned out in Seattle, and now he's in Chicago. In 71, it was 1-2-3. Jim Plunkett with Boston, Peyton's dad Archie with the Saints, and Dan Pastorini with Houston. Arizona is now on the clock. Will they trade down? We know it's Andre Wadsworth, but yet so does everyone else. The calls are coming in to the desert. They'll spend the full 15. There's the whirlwind.
Speed, quick. Bruce Smith, intensity, relentless, devastating, performer. Wow. Dion, exciting, athletic, playmaker, skill, flashy, smooth, athlete, scary.
We've had the quarterback time. We may not have another quarterback drafted today in the first 3 rounds. May not. But now it's the time for Andre Wadsworth and Charles Woodson. two tremendous players who may make this draft, along with two quarterbacks, one that we shall never forget for those of us that love and follow pro football. Mike Golick is out in the desert. Let's check in with him right now. Mike?
Thanks, Boomer. Well, Andre Wadsworth is their man if a deal isn't put in front of him. As we're speaking, Vice President of Player Personnel Bob Ferguson has been on the phone in the war room talking to some of the teams or getting involved in some conversation. But if no deal is done, Andre Wadsworth will be the man. Let's send it back to you, Chris.
I think, guys, thanks, Michael. I think that when you heard Bill Polian, who ought to know a little bit about Bruce Smith, say, well, how would you describe Andre Wadsworth? Bruce Smith. We have not had Mel and Joe, a lineman, a pass rusher ranked this high since Bruce Smith and Ray Childress came out in 1985. That speaks volumes. The pick is up to the commissioner, so Arizona obviously has held all calls.
With the third pick in the draft, the Arizona Cardinals select defensive end from Florida State University, Andre Wadsworth.
Fittingly, in Arizona, the defensive line coach for Vince Tobin is one of the greatest of all time. Joe Green and the Steel Curtain. And now he has Eric Swan, Simeon Rice, and Andre Wadsworth, along with Aeneas Williams at a corner. Folks, I know this Cardinal team was 4-12, but you put those three guys on the front line with one of the best corner cover guys in football. This is a dictating defense.
Well, it really is. Look at all the close games the Cardinals lost last year. That may not happen in '98. They have also a great young quarterback in Jake Plummer. Wadsworth, 275 pounds, a la Bruce Smith. Look at the sack total and the pressures. This is a guy who played defensive tackle and nose tackle until this year. Look at the way he uses his arms and hands, strong hands, really gets off of blocks tremendously well, and then has that great speed. Look how he closes on the quarterback there. That's what separates him. Look at the athleticism as well coming up here. This is what you're talking about. Athletic ability, speed, dominating qualities. Watch this play against Ohio State. That's what separates Andre Wadsworth from all the other great defensive ends that have come along. He's a special player, even more special than his playing ability, Chris, as a person. Great character. He's going to be a major asset to the Arizona Cardinal football team, majorly on the field, but as well as off the field and in the locker room.
Something to remember about the Arizona Cardinals here. I'm not putting them in a Super Bowl, but this is a team with a fifth-place schedule with a dictating defense. The Giants wrote a fifth-place schedule to the division championship last year in the NFC East. Arizona moving up the board. Boy, they have made some big changes since Bob Ferguson went out there and helped them organize their draft. Charles Woodson, he should be next. We'll be back. Goes to the Raiders, Charles Woodson. We will see as the Raiders are now on the clock with about 11 minutes to go. Now, the Raiders, well, we were going to go to Miami for a moment, but let's go quickly up to New England and Sal Palantonio. Sal, what's brewing?
Boomer, I just heard from team owner Bob Kraft, who said that all week long the Raiders have been trying to get the Patriots to move up to that fourth spot to take Charles Woodson. The Patriots love Charles Woodson. They would love to have him at cornerback. They think they'd be set for 10 to 12 years in their division. It would really give the rest of the teams a bunch of headaches in their pass defense, which wasn't so good last year. But the Patriots say that the price is way too steep. What I hear is they're asking for is both number one picks, the 18th and the 22, as well as a second or maybe 2 seconds to go up to the fourth spot. Mort?
Well, Sal, it looks like the Raiders are going to have quite a parlay, or at least they're attempting quite a parlay. Obviously, they will take Charles Woodson with the number 4 pick if there's no trade, but they are also trying to get into the top 10 at the number 7 spot with the New Orleans Saints, trying to get Randy Moss, the Marshall wide receiver. The holdup here is that the Saints, with this deal, along with a couple of second-round picks, the Saints are demanding next year's first-round pick from the Raiders, and right now the Raiders aren't giving. Chris?
All right, guys, thank you. Always interesting when the Raiders are on the clock with it. We understand the pick is coming right in. They got to go with Woodson. I mean, now all of a sudden corner, which was such a strength position for them for years and years and years, back from the days of Willie Brown et al. All of a sudden, the guys that they've had, they've been fine players, but are very long in the tooth. Let's go up to the podium and Commissioner Paul Tagliabue.
With the fourth pick in the draft, the Oakland Raiders have selected defensive back, University of Michigan, Charles Woodson.
know, Chris, it's the only pick that I think the Raiders could have made. Even though the trade for Eric Allen has gone through, Eric Allen has now decided that he will report to the Raiders at the quarterback position. You still have Albert Lewis, Larry Brown, and Terry McDaniel. Larry Brown probably will be gone in a short period of time.